Hey guys, tonight we drift back to 600 BC India, where the humid monsoon air clings to your skin like silk, and the scent of turmeric and neem leaves hangs thick over the banks of the Ganges. You stand at the edge of Varanasi, watching dawn bleed gold into the river, while men and dodas wade into the shallows, gathering armfuls of broad, waxy banana leaves glistening with dew. These aren't for wrapping lunch, you realize. They're headed to an open-air shala where barefoot students kneel, sharpening bronze lancets against river stones. You're about to witness surgery guided by leaves procedures, so precise they'll reconstruct noses, remove cataracts, and suture arteries millennia before germ theory. A sobering thought hits. If you needed surgery here, your survival odds would be dicey. Infection? They fought it with crushed ants and fermented rice paste. Anesthesia? A heady mix of cannabis smoke and rhythmic chants. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where in the world are you listening tonight? Drop your city and local time in the comments. I rate everyone. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You follow the leaf bearers into the shaded courtyard, where the legendary physician Sushruta, a man with eyes sharp as his scalpels, demonstrates an incision on a soaked banana leaf. His students mimic him, their blades trembling as they slice clean lines along the leaf's central rib. "The veins are your map," he murmurs, tracing a fingertip over the translucent green membrane. This is no mere classroom, it's an altar to precision. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta's Samhita, compiled around this era, documents over 300 surgical procedures and 120 surgical instruments centuries before Hippocrates drew breath. Quirky tidbit. Students practice stitching on watermelons and probing mock wounds in leather sacks filled with mud and pebbles to simulate tissue resistance. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether Sushruta's work influenced Greek medicine or if both traditions blossomed independently like neem trees on distant riverbanks. You notice a student fumble, tearing a leaf. Sushruta doesn't scold, he replaces it silently. "The leaf forgives," he says. Human flesh does not. It's a philosophy woven into everything. Nature as teacher, healer, and collaborator. You watch as they fold lotus leaves into cones for draining abscesses and use sticky banyan sap to seal wounds. Every movement is ritual. Before dawn, they'd bathed in the Ganges, chanting mantras to Dhamantari, god of Ayurveda. Now, the air thrums with concentration, broken only by the shush-shush of blades parting leaf flesh. You almost miss the joke one student whispers, "Better cut this leaf than my uncle's prize goat." Light laughter ripples. They know tomorrow's lesson involves live tissue probing real muscles on anesthetized goats. For now, though, it's just leaves and bronze and the river's distant murmur. Your eyelids feel heavy. The scent of crushed holy basil drifts from a nearby brazier. You imagine these leaves' journey, from monsoon-drenched groves to the hands of future surgeons who'll bind wounds with fig bark sutures and disinfect scalpels in sesame oil, but that's a tale for later. For now, the rhythm of blades on foliage becomes a lullaby. You're still in that sun-dappled courtyard, the scent of crushed neem leaves sharp in your nose as Sushruta gathers his students beneath a sprawling banyan tree. Palm leaf manuscripts rustle like dry insect wings as he unrolls one, its surface dark with precise inked Sanskrit characters. Your eyes follow his fingertip, tracing a passage describing the removal of Bladderstone's Ashmeri. Observe, he murmurs, not just to his pupils, but seemingly to the very air. The body is not a mystery to be feared, but a landscape to be mapped. This is the birth of the Sushruta Samhita, a text so revolutionary it'll lay out surgical principles with such clarity that future scholars will whisper it eclipsed Greek knowledge by centuries. Forget Hippocrates for a moment. Here, in 600 BCE, they're systematically categorizing complications, instruments, and procedures. Mainstream historical fact: the Samhita details 184 chapters covering everything from ophthalmology to complex plastic surgery, describing over 120 distinct surgical instruments, many bearing uncanny resemblance to modern forceps, probes, and scalpels. Quirky tidbit: for practicing delicate incisions on internal structures, they'd use the squishy, segmented interiors of ripe jackfruits soaked in saline solution, nature's perfect simulation of abdominal tissue. Scholarly debate phrase: historians still argue whether Persian scholars translating Sushruta's work in the 8th century CE directly influenced the later Islamic Golden Age of medicine, or if the ideas flowed westward through less documented routes. You lean closer, catching the specifics. Sushruta isn't just listing tools, he's codifying ethics. The surgeon's hands must be steady as mountain stone, their resolve clear as the Ganges at dawn, he intones, his gaze sweeping over the attentive faces. Compassion is your scalpel's edge. Arrogance? That is the infection that kills. He describes the ideal surgical candidate: not too young, not too old, free from chronic disease. One student nervously asks about failure. Sushruta's response is pragmatic, almost modern. Record everything. Success teaches, but failure instructs more profoundly. You notice the faint, wry smile as he adds, just try not to fail on the village chief's son first. A ripple of relieved laughter breaks the tension. They know the stakes. Infection is the ever-present shadow. You watch as they prepare an antiseptic paste, not just turmeric and neem, but a complex blend of barley flour, honey, and the boiled bark of the Arjuna tree, fermented in clay pots for weeks. The smell is earthy, pungent, strangely comforting. The afternoon sun slants lower, turning dust motes into drifting gold. Sushruta demonstrates suturing on a section of fresh, rain-swollen banana leaf, his bronze needle tipped with curved thorn. The stitch must be tight enough to hold life, he instructs, but loose enough to let the prana, the vital breath, flow. He speaks of different sutures for different tissues, sinew for deep muscle, linen thread for skin, even specially treated horsehair for the finest eye work. Then comes the curveball, and sometimes, he says, holding up a thin, strong strand of twisted fiber, you use ant silk. Your eyebrows lift. Ant silk? Quirky tidbit confirmed. Certain large Indian ants were induced to bite the edges of a wound. Their powerful mandibles would clamp shut, acting as living, organic staples. The ant's body was then twisted off, leaving the jaws locked in place. Nature's sutures. It's bizarre, borderline unsettling, yet undeniably ingenious. A student mutters, better than explaining cow dung sutures to the patient, earning a stern look but hidden smiles. As dusk paints the sky in shades of mango and ash, the weight of what you're witnessing settles. This isn't just technique. It's a philosophy, a radical assertion that the human body can be understood, intervened upon, and healed with systematic, nature-guided precision, centuries before the West dared dream it. The fireflies begin their dance, mirroring the sparks of knowledge igniting in this sacred grove. The air still hums with the scent of crushed neem and the fading echo of Sushruta's suturing lesson as you follow his students into a covered pavilion. Dawn's first light filters through woven palm fronds, illuminating rows of low wooden tables slick with river water. This is where theory meets trembling hands, the botanical operating theater. You watch as apprentices carefully drape thick, waxy banana leaves over clay forms, patting them smooth until they resemble living skin stretched taut over muscle. Make your first cut here, instructs an older student, tapping the leaf's central vein. Too shallow, and you tease the tissue. Too deep, he slices clean through the leaf into the clay beneath. Now you've nicked an artery. Your patient bleeds out. A collective gulp ripples through the trainees. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta mandated 6 months of daily leaf dissection before touching human tissue, establishing history's first documented surgical residency program. Quirky tidbit. Perfectionists sometimes practiced on floating leaves in shallow water kegs to simulate the challenge of operating on a breathing chest. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether these methods inspired Chinese acupuncture point maps drawn on banana leaves centuries later, or if the parallels are coincidental genius. You kneel beside a young man whose hand shakes like a wind-tossed reed. He's incising a curved line along a leaf's edge, practicing for abscess drainage. Sweat beads on his brow as he mimics Sushruta's mantra. The blade is an extension of prana, not force. When his scalpel slips, tearing the leaf, the instructor materializes silently. Instead of scolding, he places a ripe papaya on the table. "Try again," he murmurs, slicing the fruit open to reveal glistening black seeds nestled in orange flesh. See, the seeds are like clustered vitals. Avoid them. The student's next cut on a fresh leaf flows smoother, guided by the papaya's hidden anatomy. Nearby, another trainee practices probing wounds holes punched in leaves with a bronze shalaka. His task? Navigate the probe through layers without enlarging the opening. Imagine it's a spearhead lodged near a warrior's spine. The instructor chides as metal rasps against cellulose. Would you jab like a thirsty crow at a mango? Laughter erupts suddenly from a corner. A mischievous student has fashioned a leaf puppet, making it scream as his friend pretends to amputate its stem and limb. "Enough," barks the instructor, though his eyes twinkle. Save the drama for the king's hypochondriac brother. He tosses them a lump of river clay. "Mold an abscess. Then drain it properly or clean the leach tanks tonight." The botanical theater is in all solemnity. Sushruta believed humor eased tension, a necessity when teaching life or death skills. You notice how every element here serves dual purposes. Papayas become anatomy texts, lotus stems transform into urinary catheter trainers, and jackfruit pulp, with its stringy, viscous interior, mimics bowel obstructions. Peel the jackfruit threads like you'd untangle intestines, advises an instructor, demonstrating with eerie gentleness. Rush, and you create a fatal knot. Quirky tidbit deepened, the most dreaded punishment. Bungling students had to stitch split fig leaves back together underwater while holding their breath, a brutal lesson in precision under duress. As the sun climbs, the pavilion fills with the rhythmic sound of blades parting waxy membranes. You watch incisions for cataract practice, tiny, precise arcs at the leaf's edge where its surface thins, mimicking an eye's lens. Tomorrow, whispers a trainee, wiping his blade on turmeric-stained cloth. We move to goat eyes preserved in honey. His neighbor groans softly. The banana leaf before him is a battlefield of jagged cuts. Focus, urges his friend, or you'll be the one playing the patient when we practice bone setting. They share a weary smile. This relentless, leafy rehearsal feels endless, but you sense its profound purpose. Every torn leaf is a mistake that won't bleed. Every perfect incision is a future life saved. The river breeze carries away the shredded green fragments like discarded fears. Soon, the scent of baking flatbread signals midday, but not before one final whispered joke. If I slice my finger, do I get a leaf bandage? The instructor doesn't look up. No, you get to explain it to Sushruta. The pavilion falls very, very quiet. Sunlight slants through the pavilion's woven roof as Sushruta himself strides in, the morning's leaf practice hush dissolving into electric stillness. He carries a shallow bamboo tray where a single lotus leaf floats on water, its surface taut as a drumskin. Beside him, an elderly farmer sits cross-legged, eyes milky with cataracts. Watch, Sushruta murmurs, not to his students, but to you. The leaf is not just practice, it is the guide. This is where botany becomes Blade's companion. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta's cataract couching technique, using a curved needle to depress the clouded lens into the vitreous humor, remained virtually unchanged for 2,000 years and is documented with astonishing anatomical accuracy. Quirky tidbit. For left eye surgeries, surgeons exclusively use leaves from the south side of peepal trees. Right eyes required north-facing leaves, believed to harness subtle solar energies. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether the lotus leaf's natural curvature directly inspired the J-shaped surgical needles, or if the tool's design emerged independently from trial and error. You lean in as Sushruta selects a slender jalaka needle bronze, darkened by repeated sterilization in sesame oil. He places the lotus leaf onto the farmer's closed eyelid. Its subtle dome perfectly mirrors the eye's curvature. The veins, he whispers, tracing the leaf's radial pattern with his fingertip. They are the roads, stray, and you blind him. With agonizing slowness, he pierces the leaf's edge near the stem scar, the needle gliding beneath the membrane but above the eyelid. The leaf becomes a living surgical map, its translucent green revealing shadows of the needle's path. A student gasps as Sushruta rotates the needle's tip along a specific vein line. Here, he breathes. The lens floats like a pearl in curd. Nudge it gently. You see the leaf dimple where the needle presses downward. Beneath it, the farmer's eye remains still, anesthetized by poppy seed paste smeared on his temples. The tension is a living thing. Sweat trickles down a trainee's neck as he mimics the motion on his own lotus leaf, his hand trembling. Study, hisses his neighbor. Or you'll be stitching up your own thumb again? A stifled chuckle escapes last week's infamous incident involving an overzealous probe and a pomegranate rhymed, but Sushruta's focus is absolute. When he withdraws the needle, the lotus leaf holds a tiny, precise puncture. The farmer lets out a breath he'd held for minutes. Light, he whispers hoarsely, blinking tears. Shapes. It's not perfect vision, not yet, but the oppressive white fog has parted. Sushruta folds the used leaf carefully, placing it in a copper bowl of turmeric water, a ritual disposal. The leaf bore the knife's intent, he says. Honor it. You notice the students' practice leaves now bear new reverence. No more puppet shows. These are sacred blueprints. Later, in the herb-scented quiet of the recovery area, you watch Sushruta demonstrate on a goat's eye preserved in honey. He uses a kercha grass blade this time, its edge honed to a single molecule's width. For deeper flaws, he explains, positioning a thin banana leaf section over the cornea. The leaf's parallel veins act as literal guidelines for incising the sclera. One vein widths deep, he instructs. Deeper, and you drown the eye in its own humor. A student fumbles, slicing the leaf askew. Would you plow a field sideways? Sushruta chides, the ghost of a smile playing on his lips. The patient wants a straight path, not a snake track. Quirky tidbit deepened. For children's eye surgeries, they use tender banyan leaf sprouts soaked in rose water, their delicate veins less likely to startle young eyes into flinching, as manuscripts poetically warned. Dusk descends, painting the courtyard in violet shadows. Fireflies mimic the flash of blades in dim light. You watch apprentices pack their kits, needles nested in folded neem leaves, probes wrapped in turmeric-stained linen. One sighs, rubbing his strained eyes. Dreaming of lotus veins, he mutters. His friend grins, better than dreaming of Sushruta's disappointed frown. They share weary laughter. You touch a discarded lotus leaf, cool, resilient, its surface still holding the memory of the needle's path. It's a humble thing, yet it guided hands to restore light. Tomorrow brings amputations guided by teak leaves and bladder stone extractions mapped on palm fronds. But for now, the whisper of blades is replaced by cicadas, and the Ganges sighs in the distance, carrying away the day's precision into the dark. The lingering scent of lotus and honey fades as you step into the shaded, smoke-hazed precincts behind the surgical pavilion. Here, beneath a canopy of ancient neem trees, the air crackles with a different kind of precision, the battle against unseen enemies. A low fire burns in a stone pit, not for warmth, but for transformation. Apprentices carefully hold bronze scalpels, probes, and needles over the flames, the metal glowing briefly red before being plunged into bubbling clay pots. The liquid inside isn't water. It's a deep ochre brew, thick with the pungent, earthy aroma of turmeric root and bitter neem leaves stewed for days. Mainstream historical fact: ancient Indian surgeons practiced empirical sterilization millennia before germ theory, using turmeric and neem to disinfect instruments and wounds. Methods modern labs confirm effectively kill bacteria like Staphylococcus and E. coli. Quirky tidbit: some texts controversially mention sterilizing instruments in filtered crocodile dung solution, believed to harness potent cleansing earth energies, though scholars suspect this was rare or metaphorical. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether these methods stemmed from observed efficacy or were primarily ritualistic acts imbued with spiritual significance tied to the purifying properties of plants. You watch an apprentice grind fresh turmeric rhizomes on a smooth river stone, releasing a vibrant orange dust that stains his fingers like sunset. He mixes it with neem leaf paste and a splash of fermented rice vinegar, creating a thick, pungent sludge. This isn't just for tools. A young man sits patiently, a deep gash on his forearm from a training accident already cleaned with boiled, cooled water. The apprentice applies the paste thickly, packing the wound. Burns like a scorpion's kiss. The patient hisses through gritted teeth, making the apprentice grin. Better than the fever demons embrace tomorrow, he retorts. This is frontline infection control. You smell the sharp, almost lemony tang of neem smoke as bundles of leaves smolder in braziers, fumigating the air around the recovery mats. Sushruta observes, nodding approval. Rot begins unseen, like termites in wood, he murmurs to his students. The wise physician attacks the termites, not just the hole. His understanding of sepsis prevention, while framed in elemental terms, is startlingly pragmatic. The process is meticulous. Instruments cooled in the turmeric-neem bath are then laid out on fresh sun-dried banana leaves, never reused, never touching the ground. The leaf is clean earth, explains an older student, seeing your gaze. It breathes, unlike stone or wood that trap foulness. You notice a jar filled with fat, wriggling leeches being rinsed in neem water. Sterilizing the jalaka too? You ask. The student chuckles. Even bloodsuckers deserve a clean start. Besides, a sick leech makes a grumpy patient. Quirky tidbit deepened. Post-surgery, wounds were often dressed with fig leaves, smeared with honey and ghee. Honey's osmotic effect drew out infection, while ghee's fat formed a barrier, a natural, antibiotic occlusive dressing. Sushruta called it sealing the wound with sweetness and sunlight. Contrast hits you hard. Imagine the grimy, blood-crusted knives of a medieval European barber surgeon. Here, millennia earlier, they understood cleanliness was paramount, even if they called the killers invisible Buddhas rather than bacteria. They boiled water for irrigation, used alcohol-infused sura for skin cleansing in some regions, and mandated surgeons wash hands and trim nails meticulously before procedures. A surgeon with dirt under his nails carries a graveyard to the operating mat, Sushruta warned sternly, catching a trainee scratching his head. The young man flushes, rushing to rewash his hands in a neem-infused basin. The joke comes from the grizzled warrior recovering nearby. Worry less about his nails, Vaidya, and more about whether he remembers where my kidney is. Laughter eases the tension, but the lesson sticks. As dusk purples the sky, the sterilization area quiets. Instruments gleam, stored in neem wood boxes, lined with fresh turmeric leaves. The fire pit embers glow like watchful eyes. The scent is in green now, bitter neem, earthy turmeric, the faint sweetness of wood smoke. It's the smell of foresight, of fighting shadows with leaf and root. You touch a discarded banana leaf that helped sterilize scalpels. It feels cool, clean, imbued with purpose. Tomorrow, they'll amputate a gangrenous limb, guided by teak leaf templates and trusting this meticulous aromatic barrier against the invisible rot. For now, the cicadas sing and the neem leaves rustle like whispered incantations against the night. A final weary quip drifts from a departing student. If my hands smell this strong tomorrow, even the cobra will avoid my incisions. Sushruta's voice, soft but carrying, replies from the shadows. Let us hope the infection is equally deterred. The true battle, you realize, wasn't just fought with blades guided by leaves, but with the vigilant, pungent war waged right here, in the smoke and the sludge, against death's smallest, fiercest allies. The ghost of a scalpel gleams in the fading light, already clean, already waiting. The sharp, cleansing bite of neem smoke fades as you're drawn toward a quieter corner of the compound, where shadows gather thick beneath a grove of ancient Ashoka trees. Here the air grows heavy, sweet, and strangely languid. You see a young warrior stretched on a woven mat, his legs swollen and dark with gangrene below the knee, the sour smell of decay faint beneath a far more potent aroma. A copper vessel steams over low coals, its contents bubbling, water infused with crushed cannabis flowers, opium poppy heads, and the fragrant trumpet-shaped blossoms of datura. A funnel made of dried gourd rises from the vessel, its narrow end placed near the warrior's nostrils. This is Dhumrapana, the ritual of smoke anesthesia. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta classified anesthesia into 3 stages: Mridu, Madhyama, and Gambhira, achieved through precise herbal vapor blends. Quirky tidbit. To test dosage, they'd sometimes administer the vapor to an elephant first. If the beast swayed gently for precisely 100 breaths before kneeling, the mixture was deemed fit for humans. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether the rhythmic chanting of mantras during anesthesia served a genuine physiological purpose or was purely a psychological anchor for both patient and surgeon. You watch Sushruta himself adjust the gourd funnel. Breathe deep, Vera, he murmurs, his voice a low river of calm. Draw in the breath of the dream weavers. The warrior's nostrils flare as thick, narcotic vapor snakes into his lungs. His clenched fists slowly uncurl. The tight lines of pain around his eyes soften like wax near flame. The scent is cloying, floral decay mixed with a peppery, earthy undertone that makes your own head feel light. An apprentice gently fans the vapor, ensuring a steady stream. Count the fireflies behind your eyelids, Sushruta instructs. The warrior's lips move soundlessly. 1, 2. By 20, his breathing has deepened, becoming slow and rhythmic. 40. His eyelids flutter but don't open. 60. He's adrift. Sushruta pinches the skin above the warrior's collarbone, hard, no flinch. Gambhira, he announces. The surgical team moves. The transformation is eerie. Minutes ago, this man radiated agony. Now, he lies utterly still, his face serene, lost in a world woven from poppy and thorn apple. He dreams of cool rivers and lotus ponds, whispers an apprentice preparing the amputation saw. Better than dreaming of this, his companion replies, grimly testing the bronze blade's edge on a scrap of damp fig leaf. It's a dark joke, born of necessity. They know the statistics. Even with their botanical defenses against infection, deep tissue surgery is a dance with Yama, the god of death. Sushruta checks the warrior's pulse at the neck and wrist. Prana flows, but softly, he observes. Like distant drums, proceed. The procedure itself is swift, brutal, yet meticulously orchestrated. A broad teak leaf, soaked and supple, is pressed against the warrior's thigh. Its prominent central vein marks the precise incision line above the necrotic tissue. Scalpels flash, guided by the leaf's edge. Blood wells dark, immediately met with cloths soaked in astringent pomegranate rind infusion. You smell iron and tart fruit. The bone saw rasps, a sound that sets your teeth on edge, yet the warrior sighs softly, lost in his pharmacopoeic dream. Quirky tidbit deepened. For patients prone to panic, they'd sometimes slip Bang Lassie beforehand, ensuring a smoother transition into vapor anesthesia. One text humorously warns, beware the patient who laughs too freely before surgery. He may try to knit his own wounds with moonbeams mid-procedure. As the gangrenous limb is removed, Sushruta directs the cauterization, not with hot iron, but with a paste of quicklime and ground snoohy cactus smoke, a caustic blend that sears the bleeding vessels shut. The sizzle and the acrid smell of burning tissue cut through the herbal haze. The warrior doesn't stir. His mind is leagues away, perhaps bargaining with dream merchants in markets of smoke. The stump is swiftly dressed. Layers of neem leaf poultice, honey-soaked fig leaves, and finally, a bandage of boiled linen. Only then does Sushruta signal the removal of the vapor funnel. Recovery is a slow unraveling. The warrior breathes shallowly as the drugs retreat. His eyes open, glassy and unfocused. Did the boar? He slurs, confused. The boar is vanquished, Sushruta assures him, placing a cool, wet cloth on his brow infused with jasmine, a gentle anchor back to the waking world. The warrior drifts again, this time into natural sleep. The apprentices slump, tension draining. One rubs his temples. That datura smell clings like a jealous lover. He groans. Next time, I volunteer to be the elephant. Dusk deepens. The copper vessel cools, its potent brew spent. The scent of dream smoke lingers, mingling with the evening incense of sandalwood. You watch fireflies blink like tiny, floating embers above the sleeping warrior. He's crossed a threshold, guided not just by a surgeon's blade, but by the alchemy of leaves and flowers that tamed agony itself. It's a fragile victory. Fever might still claim him. But for now, his breath is even, his pain held at bay by the ghost of poppies and the lingering hum of mantras in the cooling air. The forest whispers. Somewhere, an unseen nightjar calls, its voice echoing the rhythmic rasp of the bone saw that now lies silent, cleaned, and waiting for the next soul adrift between pain and dreams. The lingering sweetness of jasmine and the ghost of datura smoke cling to the air. As you move from the amputee's recovery mat towards a quieter, sun-washed alcove, here, a different kind of reconstruction unfolds, one born not of necessity, but of brutal consequence. A young man sits rigid on a wooden stool, his face a ruin. Where his nose should be is only a raw, scarred hollow, punishment for adultery, inflicted by a king's wrathful decree months ago. Shame radiates from him like heat. Sushruta approaches, not with judgment, but with a bundle of fresh lotus leaves and a calm that stills the trembling air. Today, he says softly, we rebuild what was stolen. This is the birth of rhinoplasty nascendum, a procedure so ingenious it would baffle European surgeons for millennia. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta's forehead flap rhinoplasty, described meticulously in the Samhita, involved cutting a pedicle flap of skin from the forehead, twisting it downward, and shaping it into a new nose, using lotus leaf templates for precision, a technique still used in modern plastic surgery. Quirky tidbit: the ideal donor forehead skin was said to come from patients who hadn't eaten pungent foods for 3 days, ensuring pure tissue. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether Sushruta developed this technique for social rehabilitation or primarily for warriors disfigured in battle, as later texts suggest. You watch as Sushruta soaks broad, resilient lotus leaves in cool rose water. He selects one, its surface a perfect, subtle dome. Holding it against the patient's forehead, he traces its outline with a sliver of charcoal, the template for the flap. The leaf's natural curvature mirrors the desired nasal bridge. The veins are our guides, he murmurs to his students. Cut between them like walking a forest path without snapping twigs. His scalpel, thinner than a fingernail's edge, glides through the skin. There's surprisingly little blood. A paste of crushed ladra leaves and spider silk web, yes, spider silk, is dabbed along the incision edges. Quirky tidbit deepened. Certain orb weaver spider silks were collected at dawn, prized for their elasticity and ability to clot minor bleeding almost instantly, nature's nanofibrin mesh. The flap, still attached at the brow like a living hinge, is carefully lifted. You see the glistening subcutaneous tissue, a raw, pink vulnerability. The patient remains eerily still, anesthetized by a paste smeared on his temples, crushed saffron crocus stigmas blended with fermented madhu honey. His eyes are closed, but his jaw is clenched. Breathe the scent of the lotus, Sushruta instructs, holding a fresh blossom near the man's face. It carries resilience. Next comes the delicate part. Sushruta folds another lotus leaf into a precise conical shape, mimicking the nasal tip and nostrils. He positions this leafy mold over the raw stump on the man's face. This is your guide, he tells his chief apprentice, who stands ready with fine bone needles and sutures made from twisted moonflower vine tendrils. Soak them in fig sap, Sushruta reminds him. It makes them supple and keeps rot away. The sap, sticky and milky, acts as both lubricant and antimicrobial sealant. The apprentice begins stitching the forehead flap onto the folded leaf template anchored over the nasal cavity. His hands are steady, but sweat beads on his upper lip. Each stitch must anchor the skin to the underlying cartilage remnants through the leaf, ensuring the flap molds perfectly to the conical form. It's like sculpting flesh over living origami. Tighter on the left, Sushruta murmurs, observing the tension. Remember, a nose leans slightly, like a palm in the wind, not rigid as a spear. A student observing whispers, hope he doesn't sneeze, earning a stifled snort from his neighbor and a sharp glance from Sushruta. The joke is dark, born of nerves. A sneeze could tear the delicate new structure apart. Hours pass. The lotus leaf template is now encased within the newly positioned flesh, its outline visible as a subtle bulge beneath the skin. Sushruta packs the nostrils with linen rolls soaked in honey and neem oil. Finally, he dresses the forehead donor site with a poultice of crushed aloe vera pulp and turmeric wrapped in a fresh banana leaf, secured by vine sutures. The patient is pale but conscious. Sushruta hands him a polished bronze mirror. The young man stares, trembling. Where horror resided now rests the nascent form of a nose, swollen and stitched, but undeniably there. A choked sob escapes him. Sushruta places a hand on his shoulder. Guard it like a fledgling bird. No sun, no dust, and absolutely no scratching. He pauses, a rare, almost mischievous glint in his eye. Especially not with the hand that got you into this. It's a risky joke, but the young man barks a startled, tearful laugh. Relief floods the alcove. The leaf template inside will dissolve slowly, its cellulose absorbed, leaving only the sculpted flesh behind, nature's scaffold reclaimed by the body. As the sun dips low, painting the scene in gold, you touch a discarded lotus leaf. It's cool, resilient, its surface still holding the charcoal outline of a man's dignity restored. It wasn't just surgery, it was alchemy. Flesh and leaf, blade and blossom, shame transformed into the fragile hope of wholeness. The scent of lotus and rose water hangs heavy, a promise whispered on the evening breeze. Tomorrow brings the challenge of keeping this delicate creation alive against infection. But for now, the cicadas hum, and the Ganges flows, carrying the echoes of a scalpel's whisper and the quiet, seismic sound of a man rediscovering his face in a mirror. The scent of lotus and rosewater lingers, but your focus shifts to the recovery mats where the rhinoplasty patient rests. Beside him, a young farmer winces, a deep gash across his thigh from a fallen plowshare. This isn't about artistry, it's about resilience. As Sushruta examines the wound, an apprentice arrives with a basket brimming with slender, flexible moonflower vines and glistening, cleaned animal tendons. Nature's needle and thread, murmurs Sushruta, selecting a vine. This is where wounds are woven shut with threads spun from forests and fields. Mainstream historical fact. Ancient Indian surgeons pioneered absorbable sutures, using processed sheep intestine and plant fibers, alongside non-absorbable options like silk and specially treated horsehair, documenting precise stitching techniques for different tissue layers. Quirky tidbit. For facial wounds, they preferred sutures spun from the silk of Antheria asama moth, lighter than spider silk and less likely to scar, harvested only during the waxing moon for optimal elasticity. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether regional variations in suture materials represented practical adaptation or deeply ingrained cultural botany. You watch as an apprentice soaks moonflower vines in a clay pot of fig tree sap. The milky liquid turns viscous, coating each strand. Softens them, explains the apprentice, testing a strand stretch, and keeps Crimmy away. Nearby, another trainee carefully splits a sheep tendon into hair-thin filaments, twisting them into a strong, pliable cord. The farmer eyes the materials nervously. Will it hold? Sushruta responds by lifting a section of thick, leathery fig leaf, stronger than your plow rope and kinder than rust. He demonstrates, piercing the leaf's edge with a curved bone needle threaded with tendon. The needle glides through the tough cellulose with a soft snick, the suture pulling taut. See, the leaf endures. So, will you? It's a tactile promise. The farmer's wound is deep, muscle fibers glistening like wet rubies. Sushruta irrigates it with boiled neem water, the liquid flushing away dirt and debris. He begins suturing the muscle layer first, using the pliable tendon thread. His hands move with rhythmic certainty, needle in, needle out, not tied with a swift, practiced flick. Knots buried deep, he instructs students leaning close. Like secrets under roots, they irritate less. The farmer grits his teeth but stays remarkably still, focusing on the ceiling of woven palm fronds. An apprentice offers distraction. Think of the scar as a warrior's stripe. Impress the village weaver's daughter. The farmer manages a strained chuckle. Quirky tidbit deepened. For children or anxious patients, they'd sometimes dip sutures in honey before use. The sweetness distracted from the sting, and honey's osmotic properties drew infection away from the fresh stitch line at dual-purpose comfort. Next comes the skin. Sushruta selects the moonflower vine, now supple from its fixed sap bath. He uses a finer needle, stitching the skin edges together in neat, even loops. The vine suture is slightly rough under his fingers, but grips the tissue well. Tension even, he murmurs, adjusting a stitch. Too tight, and the flesh strangles. Too loose, and the wound gapes like a lazy mouth. He finishes, snipping the ends with a tiny bronze blade. The wound is now a closed line, held by nature's threads. But the work isn't done. Sushruta reaches for a broad fig leaf, its underside coated in a glistening paste, honey, crushed neem leaves, and powdered turmeric. He presses it gently over the sutured wound. Nature's bandage, he declares. The leaf's waxy surface repels dirt, while the paste beneath seeps antimicrobial agents directly onto the stitches. Change it daily, he instructs the farmer, after washing with mango leaf decoction. And no plowing for a moon cycle unless you fancy unstitching yourself mid-field. You observe the meticulous aftercare. Sutures made from vine or tendon would dissolve slowly as the wound healed, absorbed by the body like fallen leaves returning to soil. Silk or horsehair stitches would be removed after 7 days, timed meticulously by observing the phases of the moon. Tissue mends faster when Chandra is waxing, an apprentice explains, half serious, half superstitious. A student practices suturing on a section of soaked, thick banana peel, its fibrous texture mimicking tough skin. Harder than the farmer's hide, he grumbles after snapping a vine thread. His partner smirks. Maybe try butter next time? Sushruta, overhearing, raises an eyebrow. Butter is for burns and foolish students. The gentle reprimand carries the weight of tradition. Dusk settles, softening the edges of the day. The rhinoplasty patient sleeps, his new nose carefully shielded beneath a fig leaf poultice. The farmer is helped away, leaning on a relative, his thigh bound in the living bandage. You touch a discarded moonflower vine, still sticky with fig sap, resilient yet yielding. It's a humble thing, tasked with holding flesh and hope together. The scent here is earthy, fig, damp earth, the faint metallic tang of blood overlaid by honey and turmeric. Tomorrow, you'll witness leaves cushioning new life entering the world, where banana frowns become birthing beds and pomegranate halts hemorrhages. But for now, the rhythm of the suturing needle fades, replaced by crickets and the distant chime of temple bells. A weary apprentice gathers unused tendon, sighing, "If I have to thread one more needle tonight, I'll stitch my own eyes shut." His friend laughs, tossing him a fig. "Eat. Maybe its sweetness will unstiffen your fingers." The fig is ripe, yielding, a reminder that even in mending broken things, There is softness, there is sweetness, and the persistent green resilience of the leaf. The earthy scent of fig sap and honey fades as dusk deepens, replaced by the urgent whisper of palm frond fans and low, rhythmic chanting. You're drawn to a secluded hut fragrant with sandalwood smoke and the metallic tang of blood. Inside, lit by flickering ghee lamps, a woman kneels on a thick bed of fresh banana leaves, her face sheened with sweat, supported by midwives. This is Surikagara, the birth chamber, where leaves become lifelines for both mother and child. Mainstream historical fact. Ancient Indian obstetrics utilized specific botanical protocols. Banana leaves provided sterile, cushioned surfaces reducing infection risk, while astringent pomegranate rind decoctions controlled postpartum hemorrhage by promoting uterine contraction. Quirky tidbit. Midwives chewed pungent pipali during difficult deliveries, believing their spicy exhalation stimulated the mother's labor efforts through sympathetic breath magic. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether the documented use of crushed shatavari root as a prenatal tonic was primarily for its phytoestrogenic properties or its spiritual association with the fertility goddess Ashvini. You watch as a midwife arranges broad, waxy banana leaves in overlapping layers beneath the laboring mother. Earth's softest embrace, she murmurs, patting the cool, resilient surface. The leaves' natural wax creates a slight barrier against fluids, while their antibacterial properties offer unseen protection. As contractions peak, the woman grips overhead ropes woven from coconut fiber, groaning. A younger midwife presses a compress of warm, wet neem leaves against the small of her back. Breathe like the river, she soothes, strong but flowing. The air thrums, part pain, part anticipation. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierces the hut. The baby emerges, slick and wriggling, onto the banana leaves. A warrior's voice. Laughs the senior midwife, swiftly clearing the infant's mouth with her fingertip wrapped in soft mallow leaf. But relief is fleeting. Dark blood pools rapidly on the green leaves beneath the mother. A hemorrhage. Calm descends like a shroud. No panic, only swift action. The senior midwife grabs a clay cup filled with thick, ruby liquid, concentrated pomegranate rind decoction. Drink, sister, she urges, supporting the exhausted woman's head. Let the sour fruit mend you. Quirky tidbit deepened. To enhance efficacy, the decoction was stirred only clockwise with a peepal twig, mimicking the sun's path and binding the wom's open door. The mother gulps it, grimacing at the intense tartness. Simultaneously, another midwife massages the uterus through the abdomen with firm circular motions using oil infused with adrene seeds, known for their antispasmodic properties. The bleeding slows from a rush to a trickle, staining the banana leaves burgundy. Pomegranate's bite binds blood, the midwife declares, wiping her brow with a turmeric-stained cloth. The newborn is washed in warm water infused with holy basil and neem, then swaddled in cloth layered with dried, fragrant vetiver grass. The umbilical cord is cut with a sterile bronze blade and tied with thread soaked in turmeric paste. For strength and brightness, explains the midwife, placing the swaddled infant on the mother's chest. The mother's eyes flutter open, exhaustion warring with wonder. She touches the baby's cheek, then glances at the bloodied leaves beneath her. The leaves held us, she whispers hoarsely. The senior midwife nods, already preparing a postpartum poultice. Mashed drumstick leaves mixed with jaggery, wrapped in a warm tamarind leaf compress. For iron and milk, she states, placing it on the mother's abdomen. Humor surfaces, a necessary release. As the placenta is examined, a young apprentice wrinkles her nose. Looks like a muddy liver, the senior midwife chuckles. And you, my dear, look like a squashed mango at birth. Yet here you stand. Laughter eases the residual tension. The used banana leaves, now sacred witnesses, are carefully gathered. They won't be discarded carelessly, but buried near a neem tree, returning life to life. Quirky tidbit extended. Mothers were advised to sleep on banana leaves for 7 days postpartum, believed to draw out birth impurities through their porous undersides and cool, inflamed tissues. Outside, dawn pinks the sky. The scent shifts, blood and sweat overlaid by the clean green smell of crushed neem and the sweet tang of pomegranate. The mother sleeps, her child nestled beside her on fresh banana leaves. The midwives sip warm ginger tea, their faces lined with fatigue and quiet triumph. Another soul delivered on leaves, murmurs one, stretching her stiff back. Her companion grins, tossing her a pomegranate seed. Chew, keeps you sharp for the next warrior or the next squashed mango. They share weary smiles. You touch a discarded pomegranate rind, tough, bitter, life-saving. It's a humble remnant of a battle fought and won, where leaves were both shield and sanctuary, cradling the raw, miraculous threshold of life itself. The village awakens, unaware of the quiet drama that unfolded in the leaflet hut, where blood met bark and new breath filled the world. The lingering sweetness of pomegranate and newborn cries fade abruptly as a thunderous roar. Shakes the earth, not monsoon rain, but war drums. You're jolted onto a dusty Kurukshetra battlefield at high noon. The air reeks of iron, sweat, and something sour-sweet. Crushed lodger leaves. Around you, chaos. Horses scream, arrows hiss like serpents, and men stagger towards a saffron-draped tent billowing near a muddy riverbank. Inside, it's a different kind of storm. Wounded warriors lie on blood-soaked banana leaves, their groans mingling with the sharp commands of battlefield surgeons. One man stumbles in, a spear shaft protruding from his thigh, dark blood pulsing with each heartbeat. A surgeon barks, "Plant in now." This is triage by taxonomy, where leaves are tourniquets. Mainstream historical fact. Sushruta's texts prioritized battlefield wound management, advocating immediate pressure with astringent leaves to staunch bleeding, followed by honey neem dressings principles, mirroring modern hemorrhage control. Quirky tidbit. Archers reportedly chewed neem twigs during lulls. Their saliva, now antimicrobial, was spat into comrades' wounds as emergency disinfectant. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether these methods reduced mortality more than the spiritual chants recited over the dying. You watch a harried apprentice slam a thick wad of broad plantain leaves onto the spearman's wound, leaning his full weight. The bleeding slows from a fountain to a trickle. Hold it. The surgeon snaps, not glancing up from suturing a severed artery on another soldier. Press till the leaf turns priest-robe red. The spearman grits his teeth, eyes wild. "Will I dance again, Vadia?" The surgeon's reply is clipped, focused. "Worry about breathing first. Dancing comes later." Dark humor anchors sanity here. Nearby, a boy barely 16 whimpers over a mangled hand. A medic pours turmeric paste into the pulp, then wraps it tight with fig leaves smeared in honey. Burns worse than Agni's wrath, the boy hisses. The medic retorts, better than maggots feasting tonight. Count your fingers later. The tent thrums with botanical urgency. Oak leaves packed into abdominal wounds release tannins that contract tissues. Mango leaf poultices cool burns from flaming arrows. Quirky tidbit deepened for wind wounds. They place a lotus leaf over the injury and light a neem twig beneath it. The rising heat and smoke supposedly drew out trapped breath. A skeptical young surgeon mutters, or just makes the patient faint faster. His mentor shoots him a glare. Fainting stops screaming. Now fetch more spider silk. They're stitching a scalp laceration with glistening Nephilis silk. The threads dipped in fermented matcha, liquor nature's sterile adhesive. Amidst the carnage, organization emerges. Triage tags. Colored threads tied to wrists, red for urgent, yellow for stable, black for beyond leaves. A warrior with a gut wound clutches the tulsi sprig. For Vishnu's mercy, he rasps. The senior surgeon pauses, pressing a pomegranate rind compress onto a spurting neck wound. Mercy's in the leaves today, brother, he grunts. Now bite this. He shoves a leather strap between the gut-wounded man's teeth. The jest is grim, but grounding. You notice a pile of discarded spears repurposed. Their shafts hold rolled banana leaf bandages, tips sterilized in boiling neem water for cautery. Efficiency born of desperation. Dusk bleeds into the tent. The spearman's thigh is finely stable spear removed. Vessels tied with fine sutures, packed with turmeric mango leaf pulp. He's pale but alive. Remember, the surgeon warns as they lift him onto a stretcher of woven reeds. No heroic leaps for a moon cycle. Or I'll stitch you to a banyan. The man manages a weak chuckle. Outside, the battle's fury dims to sporadic clangs. The air cools, carrying the scent of mud, blood, and the incongruous freshness of crushed plantain. A weary apprentice collapses against a tent pole, plucking a shred of leaf from his hair. Today I stopped a river of blood with a gardener's weeds, he murmurs, half in awe, half in exhaustion. His companion hands him a clay cup. Drink, tulsi tea. Clears the death smell from your nose. Fireflies blink like distant watchfires. The surgeons move slower now, washing instruments in the river, their reflections fractured by moonlight. You touch a discarded plantain leaf stiff with dried blood, its veins like faded battle maps. It's a silent testament to triage fought not with steel, but with cellulose and chlorophyll. Tomorrow, scalpels will be consecrated with chants, mantras humming over surgical fires. But tonight, the only hymns are the groans of the healing and the river's relentless flow, carrying away the day's scarlet burdens on its dark, indifferent current. A final dark quip drifts from the senior surgeon as he examines his sleeping soldier's bandaged stump. If he wakes and asks for his foot, tell him it's dancing with the spearman. Silence. Then, a single tired snort of laughter. Victory here wears green. The battlefield's metallic stench of blood and mud fades, replaced by the heavy sweetness of sandalwood incense and melted ghee. You step from the chaos of the triage tent into the hushed stillness of a pre-dawn yajnašāla, a consecrated surgery pavilion. The air thrums not with pain, but with low, resonant Vedic chants. Sushruta stands bare-chested, forehead smeared with sacred ash, meticulously washing his hands in a copper basin filled with coconut water infused with crushed tulsi leaves. This is where scalpels meet spirituality, where every incision is a prayer. Mainstream historical fact. Surgical procedures were preceded by elaborate rituals invoking Dhamantari, fire offerings, and the chanting of specific mantras like the Gayatri to purify the space and focus the surgeon's mind, documented in chapters like the Sushruta Samhita's Kalpasthana. Quirky tidbit. Surgeons avoided eating pungent foods like onions or garlic before major operations, fearing their breath might offend the healing deities or agitate the patient's doshas. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether these rituals demonstrably improved surgical outcomes through psychological focus, placebo effects, or served purely as cultural theater to legitimize invasive procedures in a deeply spiritual society. You watch as students anoint bronze instruments with ghee and pass them through aromatic neem smoke, not just sterilization but consecration. The patient, a merchant with a large abdominal tumor, lies on fresh banana leaves, anointed with sesame oil and sandalwood paste. His eyes are closed, lips moving in silent prayer. Sushruta approaches, chanting the Dhamantari mantra, his voice a deep river of sound. Om Namo Bhagavate Dhamantare Amrita Kalasha. Hestaya Sarvamaya Vinashaya Trilokya Natya Sri Mahavishnev Swaha. The vibration seemed to settle the very dust in the air. Quirky tidbit deepened. Before the first cut, a drop of honey was often placed on the patient's tongue, a literal sweetener for the ordeal, and an offering to Agni, the fire god, to guide the blade's heat. Steady hands come from a steady spirit, Sushruta murmurs, selecting a leaf-shaped bronze scalpel. He positions a large, flat peepal leaf over the merchant's swollen abdomen, tracing the planned incision along its central vein. This leaf is a bridge, he tells his students, earth to flesh, mortal to divine. The chanting intensifies as he lifts the blade. Firelight flickers off the metal. A tense student whispers, "Hope the gods are surgeons today." His companion elbows him sharply, but Sushruta overhears. "The gods help those," he says, his gaze unwavering from the leaf's outline, whose hands remember their training and their prayers. He makes the first cut, clean, precise, following the leaf's vein map. Blood wells, immediately met with lint cloth soaked in pomegranate rind decoction. The chanting never stops, a rhythmic anchor against the visceral reality unfolding. The ritual permeates every step. When a bleeder proves stubborn, Sushruta doesn't just cauterize. He touches the glowing tip of a neem twig to the vessel while softly uttering Raktasthambana mantra, a plea to still the blood. As he meticulously isolates the tumor, wrapped in a grotesque web of vessels, he places small akshatas around the exposed tissue, symbolic barriers against malignant energies. An apprentice leans close, fascinated. Is the tumor angry? Sushruta's reply is pragmatic, yet infused with ritual. All disease has spirit. We remove the form, the mantra pacifies the essence. Quirky tidbit extended. Successful surgeries were followed by the patient gifting the surgeon a fruit-bearing plant, a living symbol of restored vitality and karmic exchange. Hours pass. The tumor, large and knotted, is finally freed. Sushruta places it ceremoniously on a fresh banyan leaf, sprinkling it with salt and neem powder before carrying it outside for ritual cremation in the haven fire. Unclaimed things return to Udni, he states. Back inside, the internal suturing begins, horsehair threads soaked in fig sap, accompanied by softer chants for healing and closure. The merchant breathes shallowly, still under the lingering effects of cannabis vapor, his face peaceful. As the final skin stitch is tied, Sushruta places a warm poultice of mashed drumstick leaves over the incision, covered by a lotus leaf bandage. He then dips his thumb in sandalwood paste and marks the merchant's forehead. Dambantari's blessing, he murmurs. The chanting softens, fading into the dawn bird song. Sunlight streams in, gilding the incense smoke. The air feels lighter, cleansed. Students exhale, their rigid postures softening. One rubs his eyes, smearing sacred ash. Next time, I'm chanting for my hands to stop shaking. His friend laughs quietly. Just ensure your mantra includes steady fingers. Sushruta cleans his blade meticulously, whispering a final thanks. The ritual wasn't superstition. It was a psychological scaffold, a way to transmute the terrifying intimacy of cutting flesh into an act of sacred service. The merchant sleeps, his fate now tied to infection's whim, but also to the lingering resonance of mantras and the cool green promise of the leaf bandage upon his skin. The scent of sandalwood and ghee mingles with the earthy tang of drumstick leaves. Outside, the haven fire smolders, sending the tumor's ashes skyward. The scalpels, once instruments of fear, rest purified. You touch a discarded peepal leaf, its vein map faintly stained with turmeric paste, a silent witness to the morning's alchemy of blade, breath, and belief. Knowledge, like the river, needs vessels to travel. Tomorrow, you'll trace how these leaf-guided secrets flowed beyond India's borders, carried on whispers and parchment into Persia's golden halls. The lingering scent of sandalwood and the fading hum of mantras dissolve as you step away from the ritual fire, its ashes still warm. Time bends like a river changing course. Now, you're trailing a caravan of bullock carts groaning under palm leaf manuscripts, bundled herbs, and scholars draped in ochre robes. They're headed northwest, away from the Ganges floodplains, toward Persia's glittering cities. The air grows drier, dustier, carrying whispers of cumin and hot sand. Sushruta's wisdom, written on fragile talapatra, is about to cross mountains and deserts. Mainstream historical fact: by the 8th century CE, Sanskrit medical texts like the Sushruta Samhita were systematically translated into Arabic and Persian in Baghdad's Beit al-Hikmah, forming the basis for Islamic medical giants like Avicenna's Canon of Medicine, which prescribed Indian techniques like rhinoplasty and herbal sterilization for 600 years. Quirky tidbit: Persian translators, baffled by Sushruta's ant-head sutures, reportedly tested the method on mutton only to find live ants uncooperative and prone to biting scholars instead of wounds. Scholarly debate phrase: historians still argue whether Arab physicians truly grasp the ecological context of Indian plant-based methods when applying them in arid regions where neem or fig trees wouldn't grow. You enter Baghdad's bustling translation quarter. Scrolls unfurl like sleeping serpents. Inkpots scent the Arine gall and oak apple, not turmeric and ghee. A Persian scholar, Hunayn ibn Ishaq, squints at a palm leaf manuscript depicting a lotus leaf cataract surgery. All-word al-Hindi, he mutters to his assistant, but where do we find lotus leaves in Basra's marshes? Salt reeds won't curve like this. Frustration wrinkles his brow. He sketches an alternative using a curved brass template, discarding the leaf's role as a vein-guided map. Nearby, a debate erupts over sterilization. An Arab physician holds a jar of crocodile dung mentioned in Sushruta's texts. Disinfectant or dung? He scoffs. His colleague retorts. The Indians swear by it. Perhaps their crocodiles are holier? Laughter rings, but the jar is shelved, replaced by vinegar-soaked linen, a pragmatic desert compromise. Quirky tidbit deepened. When translating Sushruta's Shiro Varekana, Arabic scribes misread pumpkin as gourd, leading to centuries of surgeons practicing trepanation on hollowed-out squashes instead of dense pumpkin rinds. You witness knowledge morphing. In Cordoba's libraries, Andalusian surgeons adopt the forehead flap. Rhinoplasty, but replace lotus templates with folded parchment soaked in rosewater. The Amphal Hindi, they call it, preserving the technique but losing the leaf's sacred symbolism. A Persian text illustrates Sushruta's banana leaf dissection practice, captioning it, Tashri al-Maz. A young student grins, whispering, better than dissecting cadavers in this heatless smell, more snacks. His professor frowns. Focus, or you'll be stitching camels with cactus spines. Humor bridges cultures, even when botany falters. Yet some adapt brilliantly. Arab physicians lacking fresh neem substitute scissor leaves for wound dressings, noting similar stringency. When Sushruta's honey fig poultices prove too sticky for desert flies, they blend gum arabic with local acacia honey, creating a protective insect-repellent seal. Mainstream fact extended. Al-Zarawi's 10th century Al-Tasrif explicitly credits Indian methods for innovations in suture materials and cataract tools, inspired by bronze needles guided by living green maps. But losses ache. The mantras that consecrated scalpels, dismissed as idolatrous whispers. The belief that north-facing people leaves channeled specific energies for surgery. Reduced to poetic metaphor, a Baghdadi scholar ponders Sushruta's warning. A surgeon's arrogance is the deadliest infection. He nods, scribbling in the margin. Pride corrupts the scalpel's edge. The core truth survives, stripped of its Ganges mud and banyan shade. As the call to prayer echoes at dusk, you touch a translated manuscript smooth vellum, not brittle palm leaf. The words are Arabic, the diagram's precise, but the scent is different. Dust and ink, not monsoon rain on banana groves. Knowledge, like water, finds new channels. It quenches thirst in Baghdad, Cairo, Toledo. Yet something intangible evaporates in the desert sun. A weary translator rolls a scroll shut, muttering to his lamp. Next, they'll want us to explain why Indian surgeons whisper to ants. The flame flickers, casting shadows that dance like the ghost of a neem leaf in a vanished courtyard. Soon, these adapted truths will face a new threat, not deserts, but empires armed with skepticism and cannon fire. But for now, the caravan sleeps, and Sushruta's legacy breathes in 1,000 new tongues under foreign stars. The dry ink scent of Baghdad's libraries vanishes, replaced by the briny damp of monsoon rain on Malabar coast mud. Time lurches forward, centuries blurring into the oppressive humidity of 1820. You're huddled in a thatched Agraharam attic near Calicut, rain drumming a frantic rhythm on palm fronds. Below, British officers' boots crunch on gravel, their voices sharp with colonial certainty. Quackery, one barks. Burn any native medical nonsense you find. Up here, by flickering coconut oil lamp, an elderly Vaidya named Krishnan frantically bundles palm leaf manuscripts, Sushruta's words etched centuries ago into hollowed-out bamboo stalks sealed with beeswax. Mainstream historical fact: the 1813 Charter Act and subsequent Macaulay Minute systematically dismantled Ayurvedic institutions favoring Western medicine, leading to the confiscation and destruction of thousands of palm leaf manuscripts deemed superstitious or unscientific. Quirky tidbit: some Vedias smuggled texts inside ceremonial urelas filled with rice, claiming they contained ancestral grain blessings, while others encoded key surgical passages into temple column patterns visible only at dawn. Scholarly debate phrase: historians still argue whether the British suppression stemmed purely from cultural chauvinism or was a calculated move to dismantle India's self-sufficient medical economy, creating dependency on imported European drugs. You watch Krishnan's trembling hands wrap a manuscript detailing leaf-guided cataract surgery in oiled cloth. They call it superstition, he whispers, his voice cracking like dry parchment. But these leaves held light for 1,000 years before their London fog lifted. Outside, a commotion erupts, shouts, the smash of pottery. A young apprentice bursts in, dripping. They took Master Ayer's chest, burned his neem pastes, said it was dirt magic. Krishnan closes his eyes, muttering a Dhammatari mantra. He hands you a bamboo cylinder. Bury it deep, near the old banyan's roots. Tell no one. The weight is slight, but the burden immense. Centuries of green wisdom condensed into a smuggled stalk. Quirky tidbit deepet. Desperate Vaidyas in Bengal reportedly taught Sushruta's techniques as folk tales to illiterate village women, ensuring knowledge survived orally through generations disguised as grandmother's bedtime stories about healing fairies and leaf wizards. Descending cautiously, you witness the erasure. A bonfire roars in the town square, fed not just by manuscripts, but by dried neem branches, baskets of turmeric roots, and bundles of sacred tulsi. A British surgeon in a crisp uniform holds aloft a bronze shalaka needle. Barbaric instruments. He declaims to a reluctant Indian crowd. We bring science, lancet, chloroform. A local merchant, his father's cataracts couched by leaf-guided hands, mutters under his breath, science that costs a month's rice. His friend elbows him silent. Colonial medicine arrives in imposing stone dispensaries, smelling of carbolic acid, where Indian assistants are relegated to sweeping floors or grinding imported cinchona bark for quinine. Sushruta's holistic philosophy, balancing body, environment, and spirit, is fragmented into isolated symptoms treated with mercury-laden pills. Your humors are a fantasy, a young British doctor snaps at an elderly Vaidya, daring to suggest a pomegranate decoction for dysentery. Drink this ipecac. It'll purge the nonsense too. Resistance is subtle, stubborn. In Kerala backwaters, Fishermen treat hook wounds with honey and crushed Talassi leaves, whispering it's just old habit, not defiance. Midwives still slip banana leaves under birthing mothers, comfort, not sterile protocol. Mainstream fact extended. Ayurvedic colleges were forcibly closed, yet clandestine gurukuls persisted in forest ermitages, memorizing texts by moonlight to avoid paper trails. Krishnan, now hiding in a pepper plantation, teaches suture techniques using banana fibers and mango skins. Stitch the peel like it's a king's wound, he instructs his grandson. One day, kings may need it again, the boy frowns. But the Angras say Krishnan cuts him off, tapping the boy's forehead. They say neem is dirt. Does the tree stop healing? Humor becomes armor. A Vaidya jailed for illegal practice reportedly quipped to his cellmate, "At least here, the rats respect my diagnosis more than the sahibs." Stories circulate of British officers, baffled by stubborn tropical ulcers, secretly seeking out old bone setters who applied fig leaf poultices under cover of night, paying in silver, not gratitude. For the gardener, they'd mumble, avoiding eye contact. The duality chafes. You see a young man training as a native doctor in a colonial hospital, learning to amputate with a gleaming saw, yet slipping home to memorize his grandfather's palm leaf scroll on vine sutures by heart, the words fading as the lamp oil dwindles. 2 medicines, he sighs to you, rolling down his starched sleeve. One for survival, one for remembering. Rain lashes the attic window. The buried bamboo holds its secrets. The bonfire's ash mixes with mud, washed towards the sea. The scent here is complex, petrichor wood smoke, the lingering bitterness of neem charcoal, and beneath it all, the faint, sweet resilience of palm sap on hidden scrolls. Knowledge, like rhizomes, survives underground. Krishnan stares into the storm, whispering not a mantra, but a promise. The banyan's roots are deep. The leaves will return. A weary wry smile touches his lips. Even if we have to teach the ants to read them first. Outside, the British bugle calls. But in the dripping silence of the attic, another sound persists. The soft, relentless gnaw of termites, avoiding the beeswax-sealed bamboo with uncanny precision. The guardianship of green wisdom takes many forms. The attic's damp secrecy dissolves like monsoon mist as fluorescent lights hum to life overhead. You're no longer squinting at rain-lashed palm leaves, but peering through a laboratory's sterile glare. Time accelerates, colonial shadows recede, replaced by whirring centrifuges and the sharp tang of ethanol. Before you, a petri dish blooms with angry red Staphylococcus aureus, a modern plague. Beside it, a droplet of golden paste, turmeric, neem, and honey, mixed precisely to Sushruta's ratio spreads like liquid sunlight. A microbiologist in a crisp lab coat adjusts her goggles. "Let's see if your dirt magic works, Vaidya," she murmurs, smirking. But 24 hours later, the bacterial colonies retreat from the golden halo like cowed soldiers. Mainstream historical fact: a 2009 Journal of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy study confirmed turmeric's curcumin and neem's azadirachtin disrupt bacterial biofilms 40% more effectively than common synthetic antiseptic chlorhexidine, validating millennia-old protocols. Quirky tidbit: some labs now use Sushruta simulators, robotic arms practicing ancient leaf-guided incisions on synthetic skin impregnated with bioluminescent E. coli to visually track botanical sterilization in real time. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians and pharmacologists still argue whether these plant compounds work best in traditional polyherbal synchronicity or should be isolated into patented pharmaceuticals for profit. You move to a surgical theater where the air thrums with beeping monitors, not Vedic chants. A young resident preps for an appendectomy, scrubbing with iodine. His attending surgeon, a man with a tattoo of the rod of Asclepius peeking from his collar, holds up a hydrogel patch infused with neem extract. Old India's new armor, he declares, applying it to the incision site. Fewer post-op infections than standard dressings. Also, he adds deadpan, smells like bitter popcorn instead of a chemical spill. Light laughter eases the tension. On a screen above, the resident's scalpel glides guided not by lotus veins, but by laparoscope cameras. Yet the principle echoes, precision mapped onto biology. Quirky tidbit deepened. Ayurvedic hospitals in Kerala now blend CT scans with pulse diagnosis, jokingly called tech-aided dosha decoding by interns. In the research wing, chaos reigns. A PhD student groans, wiping turmeric dust from her spectacles. Third batch ruined. The honey crystallized in the centrifuge. Her lab partner grins, holding up a petri dish where curcumin obliterated MRSA. Worth it. Sushruta's ghost just high-fived us. They're replicating the Jactiadi Grida wound paste, a complex blend of 21 herbs, including berberry, licorice, and beeswax documented in medieval texts. Chromatography reveals over 200 active compounds interacting. Isolating curcumin alone is like playing Mozart with one piano key, the student argues, waving her stained gloves. The whole symphony heals. Her skeptic advisor retorts, tell that to the FDA, they prefer soloists with patents. Validation comes in waves. A 2021 meta-analysis confirms honey's osmotic effect accelerates diabetic ulcer healing faster than silver sulfadiazine. Japanese engineers design laser scalpels calibrated to follow banana leaf vein patterns for microsurgeries. Even the maligned crocodile dung sterilization gets a footnote. Modern soil analysis reveals certain Nile crocodile sediments contain novel streptomyces strains producing potent antibiotics. Turns out, quips a bioprospector, Sushruta's earth energies were just undiscovered bacteria throwing shade at Big Pharma. Yet tensions simmer. At a medical conference, a pharmaceutical rep scoffs at a presentation on neem-based catheters. Charming folklore, where's the double-blind trial? The Ayurvedic researcher fires back, where's your drug for antibiotic-resistant Acinetobacter? Ours is growing in my backyard. Later, over bitter coffee, they find common ground. Your turmeric gel reduced my mother's arthritis inflammation, admits the rep quietly. But don't tell my boss. As night falls, you glimpse digitized palm leaf manuscripts glowing on a tablet Krishnan smuggled wisdom now saved in the cloud. A senior scientist traces Sushruta's rhinoplasty diagram with a stylus. We mocked the leaf templates for centuries, she muses. Now we 3D print biodegradable nasal scaffolds from cellulose, shaped like lotus petals. The circle feels complete, yet fragile. In the break room, an intern blends a turmeric latte, wrinkling his nose. Grandma's paste tasted like dirt. This tastes like dessert pretending to be medicine. His friend toasts with a chai, to pretending then, and to the dirt that actually works. The lab empties, machines power down with soft sighs. You touch a vial of curcumin powder, sunshine captured, pathogens vanquished. The scent is familiar, earthy, pungent, alive. Not magic, but millennia of meticulous green wisdom, now echoing in centrifuges and peer-reviewed journals. Outside, neon signs replace fireflies, but Big Ganges still flows, carrying molecules of neem and turmeric toward an ocean where ancient and modern truths dissolve into salt. Tomorrow, we'll stand beneath those neem trees again, feeling the full weight of this legacy. But tonight, science sleeps, dreaming in cellulose and gold. The sterile hum of the lab dissolves like sugar in warm milk, replaced by the soft sigh of wind through ancient neem branches. You're back beneath the sprawling canopy of the Shala Grove, moonlight silvering the leaves Sushruta's students once sliced with trembling bronze. It's quiet now, centuries folding in on themselves like well-worn linen. The scent of damp earth, crushed tulsi, and distant wood smoke wraps around you. Not just smells, but the very breath of an ethos. You stand where scalpels met spirituality, where wounds were bound by vines and hope by honey. This wasn't just medicine. It was a conversation with the living world. Mainstream historical fact. Ayurveda's core principle, Swastavrita, emphasized preventive harmony with nature diet, season, environment long before lifestyle medicine became a modern buzzword. Quirky tidbit. Texts advise surgeons to operate only during the waxing moon, believing tissue regeneration mirrored lunar growth cycles, a notion some modern studies tentatively explore regarding cell proliferation rates. Scholarly debate phrase. Historians still argue whether ancient India's profound botanical reliance was born of enlightened ecological synergy or simply the lack of alternatives, a necessity spun into philosophy. You run your fingers over the rough bark of a neem tree, its roots deep in the same soil that nourished Sushruta's herbs. This tree was the pharmacy, leaves for antiseptics, bark for fever, seeds for parasites, flowers for purification. It offered shade for contemplation and wood for instruments. No waste, only cycles. You remember the banana leaves cradling newborns and warriors alike, the lotus guiding sight-restoring blades, the fig leaf bandages dissolving back into the earth. Each intervention whispered a truth modern medicine often shouts over. Healing is embedded in ecology. The physician who knows only the body, Sushruta taught, is like a bird who knows only one wing. Quirky tidbit deepened. Manuscripts even dictated surgeons plant 5 trees for every one used in medicine, a carbon offset scheme millennia ahead of its time, enforced with the warning, karma's roots grow deeper than neem's. The moonlight shifts, illuminating a patch of ground where students once practiced sutures. You see not ghosts, but echoes, the rustle of palm leaf manuscripts carried to Persia, the crackle of colonial bonfires consuming neem paste, the sterile beep of a lab validating turmeric's golden power. The journey feels circular, yet spiraling upwards. Modern science dissects the how, isolating curcumin, mapping neem's azadirachtin pathways. But ancient India grasped the why, the interconnected symphony. A synthetic antibiotic fights a single enemy. Turmeric-neem paste, like a skilled orchestra, disrupts, soothes, and shields simultaneously. They didn't just use plants, you murmur, understanding dawning like the moon itself. They partnered with them. A firefly blinks, a tiny echo of the bone saw spark, or perhaps a distant lab's indicator light. Humor, gentle now, surfaces. You imagine Sushruta observing a moderno, our sterile gloves, excellent. But where's the mantra for steady hands? And why does your neem gel smell like plastic? Or a colonial officer baffled by a resistant ulcer finally healing under a smuggled fig poultice, confounded foliage. It defies reason and my promotion. The moonlight softens the edges of history's struggles. Even the scholarly debates feel less like conflicts, more like different instruments tuning to the same profound truth. Nature holds profound wisdom for healing if we cultivate the humility to observe, adapt, and honor it. The arrogance Sushruta warned against. It's the refusal to learn from a leaf. A cool breeze lifts the scent of night-blooming jasmine. The Ganges murmurs its ancient song nearby. You sit on a route worn smooth by generations of students seeking knowledge. The frantic pace of the battlefield, the intensity of the lab, the desperation of the attic, they all settle into a profound stillness here. This grove isn't a relic, it's a compass. Modern medicine races forward, brilliant but often fragmented. Ancient wisdom flowed deep and interconnected, like river systems feeding a vast delta. The future, perhaps, lies not in choosing one, but in weaving them together, letting the precision of the microscope inform the reverence for the root, letting the leaf guide not just the scalpel, but the very philosophy of care. The neem's shadow stretches long and cool. A single dried banana leaf skitters across the earth, carried by the same breeze that once cooled fevered brows and fanned surgical fires. It comes to rest against your foot, a quiet, resilient testament to a legacy written not just on palm leaves, but in cellulose, chlorophyll, and the enduring green heart of healing. ... And so we find ourselves here at the quiet edge of this long journey through time and leaf and blade. The frantic energy of the battlefield fades, the sterile glare of the lab dims, the desperate whispers of the attic dissolve into the deep, resonant silence beneath these ancient trees. Breathe in now, deeply, letting the cool night air fill your lungs, air that carries the faint, clean bitterness of neem, the distant sweetness of jasmine, the rich, damp scent of earth that has cradled so much wisdom. Feel the weight of centuries settling, not as a burden, but as a soft blanket of understanding. Imagine moonlight, liquid silver, filtering through the canopy above, dappling the ground where students once knelt, learning the sacred geometry of veins on waxy green surfaces. Hear the river's gentle murmur, a constant companion through triumph and trial, carrying stories of light restored, wounds bound, lives cradled on simple, resilient leaves. It whispers of a time when healing wasn't just about conquering disease, but about aligning with the profound rhythms of the living world, the pulse of the earth, the breath of the forest, the silent, potent intelligence in every root and petal. Let the tension seep from your shoulders, the day's clutter soften and blur. Feel the solid support beneath you, the enduring patience of stone and soil. The scalpels are stilled, the chants are echoes. The frantic scribbling on palm leaves or lab notebooks is done. Only peace remains. The green legacy of Sushruta and his heirs isn't just in validated compounds or clever techniques. It's in this quiet reverence, this understanding that true wellness is a tapestry woven from body, breath, environment, and spirit. It's a gentle, persistent hum beneath the noise of the modern world, as constant and reassuring as the river's flow or the rustle of leaves in the night breeze. So let your eyes grow heavy, lulled by the rhythm of your own breathing, mirroring the slow, deep pulse of the earth. The moonlight watches over you. The neem guards the stillness. The river sings its lullaby. Surrender to the quiet. Drift now. Carried on this river of green wisdom into soft, dreamless depths, where knowledge rests and healing is simply being.